Good morning, everyone. How you doing today? Welcome to Coffee and Cloud Native. This is the first episode. Today is, what is today? Today's Monday, July 20th, and my name is Adrian Goins. Every weekday, you'll find me here telling you about what happened yesterday in the world of Cloud Native. There's so much out there that none of us can keep track of it all. I constantly find myself learning about new tools, and as you'll learn today, there's things that are in like version 20 that I've never even heard of. I'm always blown away by that. So I thought that this could be the place where we can all get together and learn about what's happening with the software and solutions that you and I already use, and to learn about new things that we've never heard of. It's the first show. We have probably 0 people watching, but that's the idea behind having first shows. So let's just dive in. This came to me from lots of people. And this actually happened last week. This didn't happen yesterday, but I mean, it's Monday, so what are you going to do? OKD4, generally available. I'm not really sure how I feel about this. And not for the obvious reasons that, like, I work for Rancher and whatever. Like, OKD is the open source community distribution of Kubernetes that is the upstream for Red Hat OpenShift. And I've never actually used it. If you're somebody who uses it, let me know in the comments below. Anyway, it was GA'd, and there's some history of it and stuff like that, but it's a community version of Kubernetes. I looked into it a little bit further and found this somewhat old, it's from March, guide on how to install OKD4 on bare metal in a home lab. And I thought, okay, that's cool. I've got a home lab. Let's go take a look at this. First of all, the guide is deprecated because he has an updated version for OKD 4.5. So that's cool too. This is updated, this is actually 5 days ago. So after the GA announcement. Do you have a 96 gigabyte VMware ESXi system in your house? I don't. Do you have enough equipment in your house at $250 to $350 per item to install 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 virtual machines? I mean, I do, but I'm actually using it for other stuff. So my first thought when looking at this was, this seems like total overkill for a home laboratory. I think that we should have a bake-off between this and other Kubernetes distributions out there. So if there's something that you'd like to see, from 0 to running, let me know in the comments, and maybe we can live stream that. He in fact has a live stream. If you scroll up at the top, he did an install on Twitch. I haven't watched that. I'm curious to know how long it takes. But honestly, if you have a lab at home running on some equipment that people can actually afford, just install K3S. If you have a little bit more, install RKE. But there are actually lots of other Kubernetes distributions out there that I think are better suited for home labs. I don't know. This is supposed to be a news show, so OKD4, generally available. What's next? These guys. Beyond Trust released version 20.3 of their DevOps secret safe. This is the thing that I mentioned in the beginning that I've never actually heard of. I saw this come across yesterday and I was like, really? Version 20? What are you? And a bunch of people sent it in. So I thought I would take a look at it and review. It looks like it's a secret store that has actually some pretty cool features. Now for secrets, I generally use Vault. Vault has both an open source version and a paid solution. These guys unfortunately don't have an open source version. They don't have a community edition, so I can't actually take it for a spin and see what its capabilities are. But I spent a little bit of time just looking through their documentation and their feature list. And it looks like, well, first of all, in this release, they've added the ability for containers to use service accounts to access secrets within the store. And that seems like a pretty cool feature. They give you an init container with all of the code to retrieve secrets if you're running this in Kubernetes, without you having to. So the idea behind the init container is you can fetch all of the secrets and do all of your setup, and your application doesn't have to have all of the secrets logic baked into it. So it was, as far as a separation of concerns goes, I think that's really smart. You don't have to worry about updating your application, when there's a new means of the library can access something differently, you just update the init container. It pushes all that into your app, and you're off to the races. They now have an integration with Puppet and Ansible. I am an old school Puppet user. I don't use it anymore. Now I use Ansible. But one of the problems that we had with our Puppet infrastructure was secrets management. And granted, this was a decade ago. But secrets management is important, and especially when you have something like Puppet that's able to do policy enforcement and runs on a regular cadence so that it can maintain the state of systems, having a reliable way to store, retrieve, and apply secrets information is important. These guys now have a direct native integration with Puppet to take care of that for you. And then they also have an Ansible integration, which sounds interesting to me, where it can generate dynamic secrets on the fly and then store them securely from within Ansible playbooks. Now, I don't know why I'd be generating secrets on the fly, but perhaps if I needed to install something and set up a secret for it, I can actually create that in their secret store and then apply it and then save it. Ansible has, well, by default, Ansible has the Ansible Vault, which is actually good. It encrypts everything as a static text file, and you access the Vault information separately, so you can actually store your Vault stuff in your source code repository, and it should be fine, as long as you trust that Ansible can do their crypto correctly, and we've all seen that sometimes that's not the case. Something like this, where there's an integration with Ansible that can retrieve things and post them, is probably better, and I honestly wish that I could put my hands on this. But I can't. From a marketing perspective, a person like me, with 20 plus years of experience in building and installing things, wants to touch it. And I have a myriad of options available to me across the entire range of the internet. I can look at free solutions, paid solutions, and I'm not going to register for a demo just to determine whether or not the app is useful. I don't honestly want to talk to any of you guys, not you guys. I don't want to talk to any vendor until I've already determined that my precious time is worth spending to talk to them. That's why open source solutions are so amazingly powerful. And open source, free and open source, community edition, even trial versions are amazing. Ooh, I forgot to tell you something about OKD. We'll jump back to that in a second. Trial versions are amazing because it allows me to make that decision. Now, from the perspective of the business, they're probably concerned that somebody will look at it and make a decision out of context, that they wish that they could control that relationship to help sell them something. But a demographic like me, I might not buy anything. I might be totally fine with a solution like Vault for all time. I think that if you are in a business and you have a solution, trust that the users that you want are the users who are smart enough to figure things out on their own. And understand that if I can start with a community edition or a free edition or something that solves my problems now, but I'm eventually going to outgrow. When I outgrow, take Vault for example. I use Vault. And if I outgrow the free features that are in Vault, then I'm probably just going to talk to Vault about their paid solution. I'm very unlikely to go and rip out my Vault infrastructure and go talk to Beyond Trust about their DevOps secret solution. So if you're on the business side of things, consider that. Try to make stuff available. If you work for Beyond Trust, or if you somehow see this after I tweet and call you out, let me know if I can get access to this. I'd love to take it for a spin and compare it to the things I already know how to do. Back to OKD. There's one thing about this that I thought was really cool. In their description of the difference between OKD and OCP, they reveal something that I didn't realize. Probably all of you already know about it. They are using pull secrets to control paid features within what is an otherwise open source and readily available solution. And what that means is, so they've got it here for, let me actually zoom this in. Hey, look at that. So they've got it for some stuff from Operator Hub, and then they've got it for some stuff that you would pull from openshift.com/try, which I think is their container repo. So what this shows is if you have a product and you can build it all in a microservices format, you can actually release most of that as readily available and anybody can download it. but then register a pull secret for them to pull the licensed features, the licensed containers, the licensed whatevers from your private repo. And now you can maintain license subscription to pull secret. It's so amazingly obvious, but I've never encountered it before. And I think that's a really elegant way to solve to how do you bridge the gap between stuff that's free and open source and stuff that people want to pay for, stuff that you want people to pay for. Small difference there. So that's cool. The next one is shell operator for Kubernetes. If you've spent any amount of time with Kubernetes, you know that there are operators. And operators are an extension above package management. You can do package management with Helm, but operators encapsulate not just installation logic, but also management logic. And I, as a person who has years of experience as an operator, find that particularly interesting. I've built monitoring systems. I've written logic to decide not just, is it up, is it down, reboot this, restart that, but conditional stuff based on lots of inputs from lots of different signal sources to make the kinds of decisions that a human might make safely. And then if we exceed some boundaries, the computer raises its hand and says, hey, I need help. But I've not gotten into operators because, well, right now I don't actually have a use for them. That's the first criteria. It's back to that time thing. Time is extremely valuable. It's important that we spend it in the places where we get the most return. And sitting down and learning how to code operators without having a use for it means I'll learn that skill and immediately forget it. Because everything is based on association and muscle memory from repetition to actually retain knowledge. So I've avoided that. These guys have a thing called shell operator. So I don't speak Go. I speak lots of other programming languages. I've written in Java, everything from like Delphi, shell scripts, Java, Perl, yay, Perl, back all the way to Perl 4. Most of the stuff I do now is either in shell scripts or Python, just because. I used to code in Ruby. So out of all of these things, I'm left with Python and shell scripts as my go-to languages for actually doing things. Anything that requires anything real is written in Python. Operators tend to be written in Go. So all of the operator intro stuff I've avoided because I don't want to also go learn Go when I don't have a use for it. These guys have a thing that runs as an integration container between the Kubernetes API and your code. So it can receive the information from the API and then hook that over to scripts that are written in pretty much any scripting language. I think that's amazing. Now I can work with operator logic. Oh, the other reason I haven't done anything with operators is because operators that I do encounter tend to be like, install the operator to install etcd. I don't need 400 etcd instances. I need one MySQL. I need one of things. So that's another reason why the operator workflow hasn't fit for me. But if I can encapsulate not just monitoring, but maintenance and management logic in a scripting language that I already know, that seems super cool. Now, this was originally written, from what I was reading last night, this was originally written as an initial project. They use it, who are these guys? Flaunt? I don't actually know them. Hi, Flaunt. So this was written for them, but it's picked up some traction, and they are, in fact, presenting about it at the upcoming virtual KubeCon that's happening in August. Rancher will also be there. Hi, everybody. If you're going there, let us know. Let me know. Love to meet you in a virtual hallway and say hello. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But they've done a bunch of improvements, and that's what they're announcing. So they have a bunch of different synchronization modes right now so that it no longer just pounds on the Kubernetes API to get updates. It also can subscribe to any existing Kubernetes resource type. So it can subscribe to, everything, all the way up to CRDs. So it can respond to changes in events and stuff like that from any resource. They have queues for running their webhooks. That's pretty cool. I imagine I like queues for messaging and for processing things in a FIFO status. I can imagine having the ability to prioritize and run the scripts that are run are what they call hooks. I look at webhooks as actually the trigger, and then it executes something, but they're referring to hooks as the actual thing that gets executed. And that's fine. I can see the value in having something that's more of like an overlord, being able to actually fire off stuff put stuff into different queues and have things that can process those queues. I'm not sure how the queues thing works, but from a scheduling perspective, it sounds cool. Hooks can subscribe to multiple resource names. That's cool. I don't know if the standard operator framework can do that, but this can have one response thing and subscribe to multiple resource names and events coming in for it. And then dynamic namespaces is also cool. You can label your namespaces and you can have your hooks following multiple namespaces and responding to events across them. So it really looks like it becomes a much more overarching management solution and not just a go install etcd solution, which is pretty much what I see. And they have a framework so you can get started easily. So this is cool. I will be looking into this in greater detail. If you use this, let me know in the comments. If you are the people behind this, let me know in the comments as well. If you use it, let me know. Actually, you can let me know in the comments, but also reach out to me on Twitter because I'm curious to know more about how you're using this. If you're using this for more than just the standard Kubernetes operator style workflow. This goes back to the association for muscle memory and retention of information. Seeing how somebody uses a solution helps me understand what the possibilities are. And once I understand what the possibilities are, it's a lot easier to draw lines between them. There's a bunch of less significant changes. You can look at those on your own. I wasn't going to talk about this one, but it also came to me from a number of different sources. And it's the CIS Benchmarks. It's actually not this page. A bunch of people sent in that the June 2020 benchmarks were released. It was actually released on July 6th. The only reason I'm doing this is because security is super important. These guys do a good job of telling you what the best practices are for all sorts of different environments. I mean, not just Kubernetes, but all sorts of environments. And I guarantee you, I could grab these and go apply it to my systems and I would totally fail. Security is hard, and it's the kind of thing, it's not convenient. It's a trade-off between ease of use and not getting totally owned. I allow myself to be a little bit lax in here because my edge security is very good and my internet provider is even, well, I'm not going to go so far as to call them better, but they like triple NAT my stuff. So, short of you driving to my house and kicking in the door, you're not getting into my systems. But there's no excuse. Like I should still do better. The Kubernetes benchmarks that are in here, where am I? HIJK, there we go. Don't be confused. This isn't Kubernetes benchmarks for Kubernetes version 1.5. This is their 1.5 version of the actual CIS benchmarks. So pull these down, take a look at them, but they issue them in PDF format. So there's a little bit of work involved in going through and actually check this, do that, but it's still worth doing. However, if you are interested in a solution for automatically performing tests and then giving you the steps for remediation, this CIS benchmark scanning functionality is built into Rancher 2.4, currently for RKE clusters, but in Rancher 2.5, it will be available for other cluster types. This is coffee and cloud native. It would not be that without coffee. I literally got up, well, actually today I got up 2 hours ago. The idea is I get up in the morning and, I grab some coffee and come and hang out with you guys before my day begins. It's cold. It's dark. The sun's not even up yet. It's been raining for like 4 months. I don't even know. We actually got a bunch of rain this weekend, but the rivers are cool. I have a river 150 meters that way and another river like 100 meters that way. And when the mountains, which are about 60 kilometers that way, get rain instead of snow, it all comes here and it goes by my house where the two rivers join. So sometimes that floods. Anyway, we were prepared for flooding this weekend. We didn't get any flooding, so instead I get to hang out with you. Yay! Yay! Flooding bed. I have a couple of other things that I wanted to go through they're actually from last week. And this is supposed to be a half-hour show, but it's going to actually be up to half an hour. And if there's not a lot to talk about, because not a lot happened yesterday, then it'll be less than that. And I don't just want to talk about everything that comes across. I want to talk about things that get submitted. And by submitted, I mean you can call me out on Twitter, you can post things, send me messages on LinkedIn. And when multiple people are sending me the same thing, that means that the community is interested in it. So from last week, we also have a couple of cool resources that I think are worth sharing. One is these guys. Dreamlab Technologies wrote a couple of really nice articles on Kubernetes RBAC, role-based access control. And this one is actually on how authentication using TLS certificates works. Now, these are a little bit older. These are from earlier in the month. But if you want a good, solid, actionable overview of how these things work, check out their articles. They've got this one on authentication using TLS, and then they've got this one on API authorization using role-based access control, also from the 3rd of July. They have other articles that are also very good, but this stuff, back to security, this stuff is hard, it's complicated, it's complex, it's annoying, it's easy to be like, I'll just, make admins everywhere. Don't. Learn how this works and take the time to apply it. Security is like backups. You run backups forever and just complain about the space that you're wasting and the time that it takes, blah, until the day you need one. I kicked off Time Machine backups, which had been paused for a while, for my wife's computer just a couple weeks ago. I was like, I don't think I ever turned backups back on. And I went in and I just activated them and we started backing up to the NAS again. And literally 4 days later, her computer imploded. It just crashed, wouldn't reboot, was giving weird Mac errors, complaining about network interface. And I was so relieved that I could just be like, oh yeah, let's just re-OS it and reinstall from the backup. I don't actually sound like that. Security is the same thing. There is no amount of energy that you can invest in doing security that will not be paid back by you not getting compromised. The first time you get owned, you'll wish you'd taken the time. So learn about this stuff and put it in your clusters and know how it works and know how to troubleshoot it when it fails. Rancher does some stuff to make the heavy lifting of RBAC easier. We have the global policy management and plug into backend identity providers and apply security policies to all of your clusters. This is not a Rancher stream, by the way. I live, eat, breathe, sleep, dream about Rancher. So it's, I feel like I should tell you about it. Every single tool that makes something easier is not an excuse for not knowing how the back end portion of it works. So learn how these things work, and then you can use tools to make it easier. I talk about this in my weekly Intro to Kubernetes training class, where I show lots of different ways to do things, including explaining how YAML works. Understanding that nobody actually writes YAML. Like, nobody sits down and writes that stuff from scratch. Everybody's got a way to do it. It's still important to know how it works. You should know how your car works. Maybe not so well as to, get in there with the wrench and fix it, but if something goes wrong, you should at least understand the mechanics associated with it. The last one is this. This article came across and posed the question of, should startups use Kubernetes? And I thought that was an interesting question. So I came over to the article and I read it, and it doesn't actually answer the question. It talks about what Kubernetes is, and it's super basic. So this is, if you have somebody who knows nothing about Kubernetes and they're thinking of starting an organization and they're like, well, trying to pick their technology, you can use this to kind of explain what Kubernetes is. But it doesn't actually answer the question of whether a startup should use Kubernetes. So I thought that I would throw my opinion out there. If you are starting a company, if you're a startup, any tool that you choose has to give back more than what it costs to maintain it. Your time is extremely valuable. Your money is extremely valuable. And every place you choose to put that has to return for the future. Probably, if you're just starting up, you shouldn't use Kubernetes. It's one of those things where if you have to ask, you don't need to use it. Like, you'll know when you need to use it. Kubernetes is not without its own costs in infrastructure, in maintaining that infrastructure, in the additional layer of abstraction that sits between the consumers of your application and the applications themselves. These things, well, they have a cost. 37 Signals, the people behind Basecamp, wrote a book a bunch of years ago called Getting Real, and they also talk about how they started Basecamp. I mean, they have a bunch of other stuff out there, but I haven't used them since the Basecamp days. And they talk about how for years they ran Basecamp on like one server running Apache and like a single database that they ran backups from. And it crashed a couple of times and they were able to get back online quickly with no data loss, but they didn't invest in data centers of equipment and routers and stuff like that until they actually needed to. Find the minimum viable product version of application delivery for whatever your application is and deliver it from that. And when you outgrow it, consider something like Kubernetes. If your application is starting out as a microservices application that needs to be able to scale dynamically to support lots and lots of stuff, maybe it doesn't need to. But if it does, and I'm not saying that it does because you think that's cool and so that's how you want to build it, because it's a totally different conversation, but if it really, really does, and if you've decided that the right technology is containers and the right technology is microservices or service-oriented architecture, and you need something to do the orchestration of that, well, then you're looking at, do you have a person or do you have a solution like Kubernetes? In that case, yes. Of all of the container management solutions out there, the container orchestration solutions, hands down, Kubernetes is the best and the one that you should use. So should startups use Kubernetes? Probably not. It's an interesting conversation. It is 7:57, and that is all that I have for today. So, this has been Coffee and Cloud Native. I will post all of the links in the video description as soon as the show ends. If you have something that you'd like me to announce here, whether it's a tool that you use or if you're a company who has a new version of your application and you'd like me to announce it, you can hit me up on Twitter or on LinkedIn. My details will be in the video description too. I'm interested in knowing what you guys thought of this, so you can post in the comments, you can hit me up on Twitter or whatever. But if you liked what you saw today, subscribe to the channel and click the little bell to get notifications when the next show starts. I plan to be here every weekday, as long as there's things happening, and trust me, every single day, something's happening. So, have a great day, and keep learning.